And it's official. As of the 1st of June, my personal website has now been migrated away from WordPress, and I'm using Astro, Cursor for the AI, and Cloudflare for the hosting. And let me tell you, I could not be happier so far. So this has sort of been a long running thing on my website that was running on WordPress. Occasionally it would just fail. It would break, and it's usually down to a plugin automatically updating and breaking everything. I had this maybe 4 times with the home page alone, where it would just not display at all. I couldn't edit it. I would have to recreate it from scratch every single time. I couldn't even re-import from a backup. It would just fail. And things got really bad when my website actually broke whilst I was taking my daughter to school, and I wasn't aware of it. WordPress didn't tell me, none of my automated tools told me it was broken until this lovely guy, Eugenio, actually emailed me directly to let me know the website was down. When I checked it, this is all I saw. It was completely broken. I had to completely rebuild the homepage from scratch. All the other pages thankfully worked, all the blog posts worked, but the homepage, which arguably is the most important page, just kept breaking. And this happened every 3 to 6 months. So I decided to see if there was a better alternative, and that's when I came across Astro. And if you've not heard of it, Astro is a web framework for websites. It's primarily used for content websites, so blogs, which fits my needs perfectly. And the way you build posts is via markdown files, and these are all statically generated as well. So I first started by playing about with Astro, and I fell in love with the workflow. Getting Astro up and running and actually interacting and updating it with Cursor AI was a dream. So I thought, why not migrate my WordPress website over to Astro? It's faster, offers better SEO, and since it's hosted on Cloudflare, it's going to be much more reliable than my current hosting provider. So if you've not heard of Cloudflare, this is what I use to run my website. In a nutshell, it allows my website to be hosted everywhere on the edge, so no matter where someone tries to view my website, it should be as fast as possible, rather than going to a single server, which is what it was doing on WordPress. Now, don't get me wrong, I'd been using WordPress for years. It's how I made my first bit of money on the internet via ads. WordPress definitely still has its place. If you're not tech savvy, if you don't want to be in code, and if you don't want to mess about with AI, then get a WordPress website and it can do 90% of everything you want to do. Where it fell apart for me were the plugins and all the other things you need to bolt on top of it. So to demonstrate this, I've created a new website. This was re-imported from a backup literally 2 days ago, and you can see there's already 4 plugins begging to be updated. Now, 98% of the time, if I updated these, there would be no problem whatsoever. However, as I've explained previously, sometimes this does break. And you might say, we'll just set these to automatic, but that just runs into the exact same problem as I had before. I actually turned off automatic updates because my website just kept breaking and I would get no notifications for it at all. And just as a side note, I would still recommend WordPress over Astro if you're wanting something like an e-commerce site. But then again, if you're wanting a big e-commerce site, probably go with Shopify. So I've moved away from WordPress. Let's talk about what I've moved towards. So now I'm using Astro, and I'm also using a paid Cursor subscription to edit my code base. Now, this Cursor paid plan isn't just for this website. I use it for my day job as well, and it's absolutely amazing. So let's go over some of the benefits. Let's start off with the most subjective one, is the look and feel. So this is what my website used to look like, and this was all painstakingly drag and dropped, put together in the WordPress GUI editor. And this is what I managed to put together in Astro with Cursor. Personally, I think it's a lot better. It's much more performant and overall just much easier to maintain as well. With WordPress, if I wanted to change something, it would be a manual thing going into the GUI, going 5 panels deep, trying to find this specific setting, and oftentimes having to set up some custom CSS somewhere in the theme. Right now, I can just go to Cursor, tell it to update something, test it locally, and then push to production. The next biggest benefit for me was free hosting. So you can actually host for free on Cloudflare pages, and they have a super generous free tier. So my workflow right now is I will test locally on my machine. I will then push those changes to GitHub and they will automatically be pushed to Cloudflare pages. And you can see this here. So I'm pushing changes to GitHub, to the main branch. Cloudflare is automatically detecting that and then redeploying every single time. Now onto the fun stuff. So this is where the website actually improved statistically. These are objective facts. So my old website performance was not 100%. In fact, it wasn't even in the 90%. And best practices as well, very hard to track down and fix in WordPress. One thing I did come across in WordPress is you could get everything as good as possible, and then the next time you do a WordPress upgrade or a plugin install, that had a huge potential to be lost because it overwrote that data. Now coming on to my new website, you can see performance is near enough 100%. Best practices is still at 77, and that's because of how some of the archaic stuff that I migrated across from WordPress came into it. So stuff like images and extra JavaScript that I have to have in place to support some of my archive, my older blog posts. I don't really want to get rid of the older ones, and I'm okay with this slight best practices hit. WordPress backups are an absolute black hole. You can spend your time trying one of the 10,000 different plugins, but all of them have some sort of limitation. Either the free tier doesn't allow you to back up as often or where you need to be backing up, and then you need to pay extra money to back up the website that you're already paying to host. So with my WordPress site, I was doing weekly backups to a Google account, and that works really well. However, as you can possibly imagine, if something went wrong with the website and I'd made changes midweek, if I had to restore from that backup, I would lose all the changes during that week, which is not ideal. Now I can use source control on GitHub. So if I accidentally push something I don't like, I can just revert to the last change and then push to production. However, I don't see that ever happening because I can test everything locally on my machine before pushing to production, and that's just not something I could do with WordPress. Not easily, at least. Okay, so this is the stack at a single glance. So the content is written in Markdown from Astro with some HTML customs things set up, and that's purely to accommodate my older legacy posts. My editor is in Cursor, so I use that to draft, refactor, and ship new blog posts and changes to the website. My single source of truth is GitHub. Everything goes through there, so if something happens that I don't like, it breaks something, I can roll back. And the website is hosted on Cloudflare, and they operate a global edge network, a CDN network, so the website's as fast for everyone. You know, someone's not going to get a slower experience just because they're not in the United States or United Kingdom. And the biggest one for me is with WordPress, if you want to make changes, you could create a staging site, but I found that often breaks things because I integrate with Google AdSense and that sort of thing. At the moment, I can test using npm run dev, and that gives me a complete local host where no one else can see it, and I can view all changes as if it was the live site before it actually gets pushed out to anyone else. So just to finish up, this is what my website went from, and this is what it looks like now. Much more performant. I think it looks better. So let me know if you found this useful and if you've got any other specific questions for this migration or for using Astro. Put them in the comments below and I'll make sure to respond to them. If you found this helpful, leave a like and subscribe for similar content in the future.